you pray and heaven feels silent, when you cry out to God and it feels like nobody is answering, when you're doing your best to stay faithful but the doors are still closed, the pain is still there and the breakthrough hasn't come yet, most people think silence means God has left them. But what if the silence is not abandonment? What if the silence is a test of your faith? Because sometimes the greatest work God does in your life happens in the quiet seasons when you can't see him, when you can't hear him, but he's still working behind the scenes. And in those moments, your faith is being shaped, strengthened, and prepared for something bigger. Just because God is silent does not mean he is absent. That is one of the hardest truths for people to accept when they are walking through difficult seasons of life. When you pray and nothing seems to change, when you ask for direction but the path still looks unclear, when you cry out in pain and the heavens feel quiet, it is easy to believe that you have been forgotten. The human heart naturally connects silence with distance. When someone we love stops responding, we assume they are no longer there for us. And many people treat God the same way. They think that if they cannot feel him or hear him the way they once did, then somehow he has stepped away from their lives. But silence does not mean absence. Silence simply means that God is working in ways you cannot currently see. And one of the most important lessons of faith is learning to trust God even when you cannot trace what he is doing. There will be seasons in your life where your faith will be challenged, not by what you see, but by what you do not see. Everything around you might feel still. The doors you expected to open remain closed. The answers you hope would come quickly seem delayed. And in those moments, your mind begins to ask difficult questions. You start wondering if your prayers are reaching heaven at all. You begin to question whether God is paying attention to what you are going through. But faith was never designed to depend on constant reassurance. Faith was designed to stand even when reassurance is absent. Think about how a teacher behaves during an exam. When the lesson is being taught, the teacher speaks, explains, and guides the students step by step. The teacher answers questions and gives direction so that the students can understand the material. But when the exam begins, everything changes. The room becomes quiet. The teacher stops speaking. The teacher does not walk around giving answers. The teacher allows the silence to remain because the purpose of the test is to see whether the student has learned how to apply what they were taught. The silence of the teacher does not mean the teacher has left the room. The teacher is still present. The teacher is still watching. The teacher is still aware of everything happening in that classroom. The only difference is that now the student must rely on what they have already learned. In the same way, there are moments in life when God becomes quiet, not because he has abandoned you, but because he is allowing your faith to be tested. In those moments, you must rely on the truth you already know rather than the feelings you wish you had. Many people want a relationship with God that is constantly filled with emotional confirmation. They want to feel inspired every day. They want clear answers immediately. They want signs that remove all doubt and uncertainty. But if faith only existed when everything felt clear, it would not actually be faith at all. True faith is revealed when clarity disappears. True faith is revealed when the path is uncertain, but you keep walking anyway. True faith is revealed when the situation has not improved, but you continue to trust that God is still involved in your story. Silence has a way of exposing what is really inside your heart. When everything is going well and prayers seem to be answered quickly, trusting God feels easy. But when the answers slow down, when the struggle lasts longer than expected, that is when faith becomes real. Some people stop believing the moment they encounter silence. They interpret the quiet as rejection. They conclude that God must not care about them or their situation. And because of that belief, they walk away from the very source of strength that could carry them through the storm. But the truth is that God's presence is not limited to what you feel in a moment. There will be days when your emotions are strong and you feel deeply connected to him. But there will also be days when your emotions are weak and everything feels distant. In those moments, the mistake many people make is assuming that God has moved simply because their feelings have changed. Feelings are temporary. God's presence is not. Even when you cannot sense him the way you want to, he is still there. Even when the answers are delayed, he is still aware of your situation. Even when the silence stretches longer than you expected, he has not lost sight of you. Sometimes the silence is actually protecting you. Sometimes the answer you are asking for is delayed because the timing is not yet right. Sometimes the door you are trying to open is closed because something better is still being prepared. And sometimes the quiet season you are experiencing is shaping your character in ways that would not be possible if everything came easily. Growth often happens in silence. Seeds grow underground where nobody can see them. Before a tree ever appears above the surface, something important is happening in the hidden places beneath the soil. Roots are spreading. Strength is developing. The foundation is being built. If you judge the process only by what you could see on the surface, you might assume that nothing is happening. But in reality, the most important work is taking place where human eyes cannot observe it. The same principle applies to your life. There are seasons when it feels like nothing is changing. It feels like your efforts are not producing visible results. It feels like your prayers are disappearing into the air without response. But beneath the surface of your circumstances, God may be arranging things in ways that you cannot yet understand. He may be aligning opportunities that are not ready to appear yet. He may be removing obstacles that you cannot see. He may be strengthening you internally so that when the breakthrough finally arrives, you will be prepared to handle it. Silence does not mean inactivity. It often means preparation. And preparation is one of the most important parts of any breakthrough, because blessings that arrive before you are ready can easily become burdens instead of gifts. That is why learning to trust God during silent seasons is so important. It teaches you patience. It teaches you endurance. It teaches you to rely on something deeper than immediate results. Anyone can believe when miracles are visible. Anyone can stay hopeful when everything is going their way. But the people who experience the deepest spiritual strength are those who continue to trust even when the silence stretches longer than expected. They understand that faith is not built on constant explanations. Faith is built on confidence in the character of God. If you know that God is good, then his silence does not mean harm. If you know that God is faithful, then his quiet moments do not mean abandonment. If you know that God sees the beginning and the end of your story, then you can trust that he will guide and direct you through the twists and turns of life. Then you can rest in the reality that even when you do not understand the present moment, he already understands the outcome. That kind of trust transforms the way you view silence. Instead of seeing it as a sign that something is wrong, you begin to see it as an invitation to grow. You begin to realize that the quiet moments are strengthening your faith in ways that constant comfort never could. They are teaching you how to stand when emotions are unstable. They are teaching you how to believe when evidence is limited. And when you learn to trust God in silence, your faith becomes unshakable, because it is no longer dependent on circumstances, feelings, or immediate answers. It is rooted in something far deeper. So if you find yourself in a season where heaven feels quiet, do not assume that God has left you. Do not conclude that your prayers have been ignored. Do not believe the lie that silence means distance. Instead, remind yourself of this truth. Silence does not mean absence. God is still present in the quiet moments. He is still aware of every prayer you have spoken. He is still working in ways that are invisible to you right now. And one day when the answer finally arrives and the purpose of the silence becomes clear, you will realize that even when you could not hear him, he was guiding you the entire time. Faith doesn't grow in comfort, it grows in pressure. This is one of the most powerful truths that people often overlook when they face difficult seasons in life. When everything is easy, faith is not required. When the path is clear, when resources are abundant, when circumstances align perfectly, anyone can feel confident, anyone can trust, and anyone can believe that things will work out. It's in the moments when life is challenging, when circumstances are difficult, and when answers seem delayed that faith is truly tested and developed. Pressure creates the conditions for growth, and silence creates the environment for faith to deepen and strengthen. Many people misunderstand the concept of faith. They think faith is simply believing that things will go their way or that God will immediately answer every prayer. But real faith is far more profound than that. Faith is the ability to continue trusting, believing, and holding firm even when the results are not visible, even when the situation seems impossible. And even when the natural response would be to give up. Faith is not dependent on comfort or clarity. It is forged in the fires of trials, challenges, and waiting. It is in these very moments that your character is being shaped, your endurance is being tested, and your trust in God is being refined. The silence of God is not an absence of power or care. On the contrary, it is often a strategic pause, a divine opportunity for you to develop spiritual muscles that can only grow under pressure. When everything seems easy, the human heart has no need to stretch. It has no need to lean on God. But when circumstances push against you, when doors remain closed, when your prayers do not appear to be answered, you are forced to rely on something beyond yourself. You are compelled to trust a higher power, to lean on unseen guidance, and to act with conviction despite the lack of visible proof. This is how faith grows. Think of the process of building physical strength. A weightlifter does not grow stronger by lifting only light weights that require no effort. Growth comes when muscles are stressed beyond their current capacity, when the body is challenged, and when there is strain and tension. The discomfort and pressure are necessary for the transformation. Spiritual growth operates in a similar way. Faith grows when you are stretched, when you are tested, and when you are forced to trust in God even in the silence. It is during these quiet, challenging seasons that your trust in God becomes real. When life is easy, faith can often be shallow because there is nothing demanding a deep commitment. But when answers are delayed, when doors remain closed, when hope seems distant, faith becomes not just a feeling but a deliberate choice. You decide to trust even when it doesn't make sense. You decide to believe even when there is no visible evidence. You decide to hope even when everything around you is trying to convince you otherwise. This decision over time builds a faith that cannot be shaken by circumstance. Pressure and silence also teach patience. In a world where instant gratification is common, waiting is one of the hardest lessons to learn. But God uses waiting periods and silent seasons to teach you the value of endurance. Waiting forces you to confront your impatience, your doubts, and your fears. Waiting forces you to rely not on your timing, but on God's timing. And it is in this space of patience and persistence that faith grows stronger and more resilient. You learn that you do not need immediate results to trust God. You learn that His plan is perfect, even if it is not immediately visible. The growth of faith under pressure also develops discernment. When circumstances are difficult, it is easy to make decisions based on fear, frustration, or impatience. But when you practice trusting God during these challenging moments, you learn to seek guidance from a higher perspective rather than reacting impulsively. You learn to align your decisions with wisdom and spiritual understanding rather than temporary feelings or circumstantial pressures. The silence of God becomes a classroom for developing spiritual discernment, helping you navigate life with deeper insight and clarity once the breakthrough comes. Faith also grows under pressure because challenges refine character. Adversity exposes weaknesses, fears, and areas in need of growth. It is easy to act faithfully when life is smooth, but true character is revealed when faith is tested. The trials you face, the struggles you endure, and the quiet moments you survive are shaping your integrity, resilience, and perseverance. These qualities are not just for the sake of enduring hardship, they are preparing you for the responsibilities, opportunities, and blessings that lie ahead. God often uses the silent, pressure-filled seasons to mold your character so that when the breakthrough arrives, you are fully prepared to steward it wisely and effectively. Another crucial aspect of faith growing in pressure is reliance. Humans are naturally self-reliant. We want control over outcomes, certainty about the future, and immediate solutions to problems. But when God is silent, we are forced to surrender our need for control and place our reliance fully on Him. This surrender is uncomfortable and it can feel unnatural at first. But it is precisely this surrender that strengthens faith. By learning to let go of our need to see every step and control every outcome, we learn to trust God's guidance, timing, and wisdom. This dependence is not weakness, that is the foundation for unwavering faith that can endure any storm. Pressure also sharpens hope. In times of challenge and silence, hope becomes an anchor for the soul. It is easy to give up when circumstances seem bleak, but faith under pressure keeps hope alive. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every difficult moment becomes an opportunity to reaffirm hope, to cling to the belief that God is working behind the scenes and that His plan is unfolding even if it is invisible to you right now. The act of holding on to hope despite adversity is a critical part of faith development. Moreover, faith that grows in pressure has a lasting impact beyond the individual. When you cultivate trust and perseverance in difficult seasons, you become a living testimony for others. Your journey through silence and pressure equips you to encourage, inspire, and guide those who are facing similar struggles. The faith that was forged in your quiet trials becomes a beacon of hope for someone else. The silent seasons you endured may prepare you to speak into the lives of others who are now facing their own storms. This ripple effect extends the value of the faith you develop under pressure far beyond your own personal experience. It is also important to recognize that pressure under silence often exposes areas that require transformation. God does not allow trials or quiet seasons merely to test endurance. He also uses them to refine priorities, reshape attitudes, and correct misconceptions. Perhaps there are habits, dependencies, or fears that have limited your spiritual growth. The pressure reveals them, and faith requires that you confront them, surrender them, and allow transformation to take place. The result is not just stronger faith, it is a stronger, wiser, and more mature individual, fully equipped for what lies ahead. Finally, faith grows in pressure because it becomes intentional. When life is smooth, trust can be passive, but in the silence, faith requires deliberate action. Choosing to pray even when it feels pointless, reading scripture even when inspiration seems absent, trusting God even when evidence is lacking. These deliberate acts of faith repeated over time produce a deep-rooted spiritual strength that cannot be shaken by circumstances. They create a foundation for lifelong faith that is resilient, unwavering, and capable of withstanding even the most difficult storms. So, while the silence of God may be uncomfortable, frustrating, and even painful at times, it is in these very moments that your faith is being cultivated and strengthened. Just as muscles grow under stress, patience grows under waiting, character is refined under trials, and trust develops under surrender. The pressure does not exist to punish you, it exists to prepare you. It exists to transform your faith from something ordinary into something extraordinary. It exists to teach you how to believe when it doesn't make sense, how to hope when all seems lost, and how to stand firm when the world around you says give up. By the time the silence breaks, the trial ends, or the breakthrough finally comes, your faith will not just be intact, it will be stronger than it has ever been. It will be resilient, unshakable, and ready for the new season that God has prepared for you. The struggles you endured, the moments you felt alone, and the pressure you face will all serve as a testimony to the power of faith that is built not in comfort, but in pressure. Faith grows in the hidden, quiet moments. It grows when circumstances test you. It grows when patience is required. It grows when surrender becomes necessary. And the longer you trust God in those silent seasons, the deeper, stronger, and more enduring your faith becomes, equipping you not just to survive the storms of life, but to thrive beyond them. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come right after the hardest silence. It is often in the moments when we feel most alone, when the doors we expected to open remain stubbornly closed, and when every day seems like a repetition of struggle, that God is quietly orchestrating the events that will lead to our most significant victories. Life has a rhythm that is often invisible to the human eye. We see the waiting, the struggle, the unanswered prayers, and we assume that nothing is happening. But the truth is that God's timing is perfect, and what appears to be inactivity is often preparation for something extraordinary. Many people misinterpret silence as rejection. When they pray, ask for guidance, or seek change, and they do not receive immediate responses, they assume that God is not listening or that their efforts are in vain. They begin to feel that their faith has been wasted, that their hope is misplaced, and that their prayers have gone unheard. But silence is not the absence of action, it is the space in which transformation is taking place. God often works behind the scenes, arranging circumstances, aligning opportunities, and preparing the people, situations, and resources that will make a breakthrough not just possible, but life-changing. Breakthroughs rarely occur in isolation. They require preparation, timing, and the alignment of multiple elements that the human mind cannot see in advance. The silence you experience is part of that preparation. It is the period during which God ensures that when the breakthrough arrives, you are ready to receive it. If breakthroughs came without preparation, without testing, or without growth, you might not be equipped to handle them. Just as a tree needs roots to grow before it can bear fruit, your life needs periods of quiet preparation before the doors of opportunity and blessing can fully open. Many people give up just before their breakthrough. It is a tragic pattern. They pray for years, they hope for change, and when nothing seems to happen, they assume the dream is impossible. They walk away from their calling, abandon their goals, and resign themselves to disappointment. Yet often the very moment they are tempted to give up is the moment the breakthrough is about to arrive. The silence is a test of endurance, a measure of patience, and a call to persevere. The longer you hold on in faith during these quiet seasons, the stronger and more prepared you become to embrace the extraordinary that is waiting for you. The silence also teaches perseverance. Perseverance is not simply the act of continuing to move forward. It is the disciplined commitment to hold fast to your faith, vision, or purpose, even when every sign points to the opposite. When doors remain closed, circumstances are difficult, and answers are delayed, perseverance becomes a critical spiritual skill. It is in the act of persevering that your character is refined. Perseverance under pressure builds resilience, confidence, and an unshakable belief that what God has promised will come to pass, even if the path is not yet visible. Breakthroughs that follow silence are often greater than anything we could have imagined. When the waiting period is over, when the struggle has served its purpose, and when the moment of breakthrough finally arrives, it often exceeds all expectations. It is larger, more impactful, and more transformative than we would have anticipated if it had come too early or without the necessary preparation. The delay and the quiet were not obstacles, they were building blocks. They were forming the foundation upon which the breakthrough would rest. It is important to understand that breakthroughs are not just about material success or external achievement, they are about transformation. God uses periods of silence and waiting to shape your character, align your heart with His purpose, and prepare you for responsibility. The breakthrough is not just the answer to your prayers, it is a reflection of the growth, maturity, and perseverance you have developed in the process. You cannot fully appreciate a blessing if you are not prepared to receive it with gratitude, humility, and wisdom. The silence ensures that you will be ready. Faith in the midst of silence also develops spiritual discernment. When you cannot see the outcome, you are forced to rely on spiritual intuition and guidance rather than immediate evidence. You learn to trust the principles of divine timing and wisdom rather than reacting impulsively to circumstances. This discernment allows you to make decisions that align with your long-term purpose rather than being swayed by temporary frustrations or emotions. By trusting God in the quiet moments, you sharpen your ability to recognize the right doors when they open and the right opportunities when they appear. The silence is also a test of gratitude and contentment. It is easy to be thankful when life is going well. It is easy to trust when every prayer is answered quickly. But true faith requires learning to remain grateful even in the waiting, to maintain hope even when circumstances are difficult, and to cultivate contentment even when the desired results are delayed. These qualities are essential for sustaining faith through life's storms and for fully embracing the blessings that will eventually arrive. Many people fail to recognize that breakthroughs are often cumulative. They are the result of persistent effort, consistent faith, and unwavering trust over an extended period. The quiet seasons, the struggles, and the tests of faith all contribute to the eventual manifestation of breakthrough. Each challenge overcome, each period of waiting endured, and each act of faith during silence adds up, building momentum that culminates in a powerful, life-altering moment of change. The silence also has a refining effect on relationships, priorities, and values. During the quiet season, you are given the opportunity to focus on what truly matters, to discern between temporary desires and eternal purposes, and to align your life with the values that will sustain you in the future. By enduring silence faithfully, you cultivate a life that is not dependent on immediate gratification, but on enduring principles, spiritual alignment, and divine guidance. Breakthroughs that follow silence often inspire others. When you experience the arrival of a long-awaited answer or the opening of a long-closed door, your story becomes a testimony. Your journey through the quiet season equips you to encourage and uplift others who may be facing similar struggles. By sharing your experience of faith, perseverance, and trust, during the silent period, you become a source of hope and inspiration for those still waiting. This ripple effect extends the impact of your breakthrough far beyond your personal life, touching countless others who may be encouraged to hold on in faith. It is also crucial to remember that breakthroughs do not necessarily come in the form we expect. Sometimes God's answer to our prayers is different from our original request, but it is ultimately better than what we could have imagined. The silence may prepare you to receive something greater, something that requires your faith, patience, and readiness. By trusting in God's timing, you position yourself to receive blessings that are perfectly suited to your growth, purpose, and destiny. The breakthrough that follows silence is often the confirmation of all the lessons learned during the waiting period. It validates the endurance, perseverance, and faithfulness you have demonstrated. It affirms that your trust was not misplaced and that the struggles you endured were not in vain. It reveals that the quiet season was necessary, intentional, and ultimately beneficial, shaping you into someone capable of handling the extraordinary opportunities and responsibilities that lie ahead. Finally, understanding that breakthroughs often come after the hardest silence helps us cultivate patience and hope. It teaches us to remain steadfast, to keep praying, and to continue walking faithfully even when nothing seems to happen. It reminds us that God's timing is perfect, that His plans are greater than our own, and that He is always at work, even when we cannot see it. By embracing this perspective, we transform the experience of waiting from one of frustration and doubt into one of growth, preparation, and expectation. The greatest breakthroughs in life are rarely instantaneous. They are not the result of a single moment of effort or a single answered prayer. They are the culmination of a journey of faith, endurance, and trust during periods of silence and waiting. By persevering through the quiet seasons, by maintaining faith when answers are delayed, we can find the strength to keep going even when the road ahead seems uncertain. And by trusting in the unseen work of God, we prepare ourselves to experience breakthroughs that are profound, transformative, and life-changing. So if you are in a season where it feels like nothing is happening, remember this. The silence is not a sign that your efforts are wasted or that your prayers have gone unheard. It is the time when God is quietly arranging the pieces, preparing the circumstances, and strengthening your faith for the breakthrough that is coming. The very moment you are tempted to give up may be the moment the blessing is about to arrive. Stay faithful, stay hopeful, and continue trusting. The silence is temporary, the breakthrough is inevitable, and the lessons you learn along the way will prepare you to fully embrace the extraordinary life that awaits you.